Hi guys. Okay, I'm ready for chapter 5 of Florence Scovel Shinn's. And the book I'm reading right now is there's four in this book, by the way, but it's The Game of Life and How to Play It. And if you have missed the other four chapters, the links to them are going to be underneath in the description section. You just click on them. And I have been learning so much from Florence Shinn, and I really feel like had she been alive right now, we would have been really good friends. Oh my goodness. It just makes my heart warm every time I read her, and I am really hoping that you are just as excited about her as I am. I mean, anyway, just, ugh. Anyway. All right, let's get started. The weird thing about these books is I want you to see how tiny the writing is. I mean, come on, come on. I'm not 20. Anyway, the law of karma and the law of forgiveness. Man receives only that which he gives. The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Man's thoughts, deeds, and words return to him sooner or later with astounding accuracy. I have a funny story about that for you later. This is the law of karma, which in Sanskrit for comeback, whatever a man soweth, that shall all he shall also reap. Okay, I really chopped that one up. Sorry about it. Let me try again. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Okay, I did it, right? All right. For example, a friend told me this story of herself illustrating the law. She said, I make all my karma on my aunt. Whatever I say to her, someone says to me. I am often irritable at home, and one day said to my aunt, who was talking to me during dinner, no more talk. I wish to eat in peace. The following day, I was lunching with a woman with whom I wished to make a great impression. I was talking animately when she said, no more talk. I wish to eat in peace. Wow, that was pretty accurate. My friend is high in consciousness, so her karma returns much more quickly than to one on the mental plane. The more man knows, the more he is responsible for, and a person with a knowledge of spiritual law, which he does not practice, suffers greatly in consequence. Okay, what it? The more man knows, the more he's responsible for. Okay, so the higher we are in consciousness, um, the the quicker the karma comes. Okay, I don't know why my hand, I put my hand up and my hand came up on my Zoom. Oh my goodness, I need to be careful with my hands now. Um, okay. So the fear of the Lord or the law is the beginning of wisdom. If we read the word Lord, law, it will make many passages in the Bible much clearer. Okay, interesting. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord, and then cross out Lord and put law. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the law. It is the law which takes vengeance, not God. God sees man perfect, created in his own image, imagination. And imagination is in like not quotations, but in the whatever those things are. Sorry. Ooh, I didn't grow up in America, okay? And given power and dominion. This is the perfect idea of man registered in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition. For man can only be what he sees himself to be, and only attain what he sees himself attaining. Nothing ever happens without an onlooker, is an ancient saying. Not sure how that relates to that, but okay. Man sees first his failure or success, his joy or sorrow, before it swings into visibility from the scenes set in his own imagination. I get that. Too, I like that. The scenes set in his own imagination. We have observed this in the mother picturing disease for her child or a woman seeing success for her husband. Jesus Christ said, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." So we see freedom from all unhappy conditions come through knowledge, a knowledge of spiritual law. Okay. So freedom comes from spiritual law. Obedience precedes authority, and the law obeys man when he obeys the law. The law of electricity must be obeyed before it becomes man's servant. When handled ignorantly, it becomes man's deadly foe. So with the laws of mind. For example, a woman with a strong personal will wished she owned a house which belonged to an acquaintance, and she often made mental pictures of herself living in the house. In the course of time, the man died and she moved into the house. Several years afterwards, coming into the knowledge of spiritual law, she said to me, "Do you think I had anything to do with that man's death?" I replied, "Yes, your desire was so strong, everything made way for it, for you paid your karmic debt. Your husband, whom you loved devotedly, died soon after, and the house was a white elephant on your hands for years." I'm not sure. Um, Desire was so strong, everything made way for it. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. The original owner, however, could not have been affected by her thoughts had he been positive in the truth, nor her husband, but they were both under karmic law. The women should have said, feeling the great desire for the house, "Infinite intelligence, give me the right house, equally as charming as this, the house which is mine by divine right." I have lots of questions about divine right, but I'm going to underline it, see what you guys think. The divine selection should have given perfect satisfaction and brought good to all. Okay, there you go. That answers some of my questions. The divine selection should have given perfect satisfaction and brought good to all. The divine pattern is the only safe pattern to work by. Desire is a tremendous force and must be directed in the right channels or chaos ensues. I just want to know how she knew all this. Just how did she know all this? In demonstrating, the most important step is the first step, to ask right. Man should always demand only that which is his by divine right. Okay. Okay. To go back to the illustration, had the woman taken the attitude, "If this house I desire is mine, I cannot lose it. If it is not, give me its equivalent," the man might have decided to move out harmoniously had it been the divine selection for her, or another house would have been substituted. Anything forced into manifestation through personal will is always ill got and has, quote, ever bad success. Man is admonished, quote, "My will be done, not thine." And the curious thing is, man always gets just what he desires when he does relinquish personal will, thereby enabling infinite intelligence to work through him. Whoa, that one's heavy. All right, I'm going to reread that one if you guys don't mind. Manifestation. Okay, a man admonished, "My will be done, not thine." And curious thing is, man always gets just what he desires when he does relinquish personal will. So when you relinquish personal will, enabling infinite intelligence to work through him. Okay, so let go of control, everything. Stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord. And then, of course, you're going to substitute Lord for law, right? Okay, for example, a woman came to me in great distress. Her daughter had determined to take a very hazardous trip. The mother was filled with fear. She said she had used every argument, had pointed out the dangers to be encountered, and forbidden her to go, but the daughter became more and more rebellious and determined. I said to the mother, "You are forcing your personal will upon your daughter, which you have no right to do, and your fear of the trip is only attracting it. For men attracts what he fears." I added, "Let go, take your mental hands off, put it in God's hands, and use this statement. Quote, I put this situation in the hands of the infinite love and wisdom. If this trip is the divine plan, I bless it and no longer resist. But if it's not divinely planned, I give thanks that it is now dissolved and dissipated." A day or two after that, the daughter said to her mother, "I have given up the trip," and the situation returned to its native nothingness. That's so cool. Okay. I'm going to repeat that because I really think that we should all use some form of that kind of statement. I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. If this trip is the divine plan or whatever else you want to substitute for the trip, I bless it and no longer resist. But if it is not divinely planned, I give thanks that it is now dissolved and dissipated. Okay, so write that down for your next time you're worried about something. And I just heard a huge explosion. That was crazy. I should go check it out. Okay, I couldn't find out what that was. Anyway, stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord. Again, law. For example, a woman came to me in great distress. Her daughter, okay, we've already read that. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? It is learning to, quote, stand still, which seems so difficult for a man. I will deal more fully with this law in the chapter on non-resistance. I will give another example of sowing and reaping, which came in the most curious way. A woman came to see me saying she had received a counterfeit $20 bill given to her in the bank. She was much disturbed, for she said, quote, "The people at the bank will never acknowledge their mistake." I replied, "Let us analyze the situation and find out why you attracted it." She thought a few moments and exclaimed, "I know it. I sent a friend a lot of stage money just for a joke. So the law had sent her some stage money, for it doesn't know anything about jokes." I said, "Okay, now we can call on the law of forgiveness and neutralize the situation. Christianity is founded upon the law of forgiveness. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the karmic law, and the Christ within each man in his Redeemer and salvation from all inharmonious conditions." So I said, "Infinite Spirit, we call on the law of forgiveness and give thanks that she is under grace and not under law, and cannot lose this $20, which is hers by divine right. Now," I said, "go back to the bank and tell them fearlessly that it was given you there by mistake." She obeyed, and to her surprise, they apologized and gave her another bill, treating her most courteously. So, knowledge of the law gives man power to rub out his mistakes. Man cannot force the external to be what he is not. If he desires riches, he must be riches first in consciousness. For example, a woman came to me asking treatment for prosperity. She did not take much interest in her household affairs, and her home was in great disorder. I said to her, "If you wish to be rich, you must be orderly. All men with great wealth are orderly, and order is heaven's first law. I added, you will never become rich with a burnt match in the pincushion, whatever that means. Must be something from the 1920s. I don't know. She had a good sense of humor and commenced immediately, putting her house in order. She rearranged furniture, straightened out bureau drawers, cleaned rugs, and soon made a big financial demonstration, a gift from a relative. The woman herself became made over and keeps herself keyed up financially by being ever watchful of the external and expecting prosperity, knowing God is her supply. Many people are in ignorance of the fact that gifts and things are investments and that hoarding and saving invariably lead to loss. I need to hear this. I needed to hear this today. It's really cool. There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than it meet, but it tendeth to poverty. Okay, I'm sorry. I really chopped that one up. For example, I knew a man who wanted to buy a fur-lined overcoat. He and his wife went to various shops, but there was none he wanted. He said they were all too cheap looking. At last he was shown one. The salesman said was valued at $1,000, but which the manager would sell him for $500 as it was late in the season. His financial possessions amounted to about $700. The reasoning mind would have said, you can't afford to spend nearly all you have on a coat, but it was very intuitive and never reasoned. He turned to his wife and said, if I get this coat, I'll make a ton of money. So his wife consented weakly. About a month later, he received a $10,000 commission. The code made him feel so rich, it linked him with success and prosperity. Without the coat, he would not have received the commission. It was an investment paying large dividends. Okay, I get it. Um, if man ignores these leadings to spend or to give, the same amount of money will go in an uninteresting or unhappy way. For example, a woman told me on Thanksgiving Day she informed her family that they could not afford a Thanksgiving dinner. She had the money but decided to save it. A few days later, someone entered her room and took from the bureau drawer the exact amount the dinner would have cost. The law always stands back of the man who spends fearlessly with wisdom. For example, one of my students was shopping with her little nephew. The child clamored for a toy, which she told him she could not afford to buy. She realized suddenly that she was seeking lack and not recognizing God as her supply. So she bought the toy and on her way home picked up in the street the exact amount of money she had paid for it. Man's supply is inexhaustible and unfailing when fully trusted, but faith or trust must precede the demonstration. According to your faith, be it unto you. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For faith holds the vision instead, and the adverse pictures are dissolved and dissipated. And in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Jesus Christ brought the good news, the gospel, that there was a higher law than the law of karma. There's a higher law than the law of karma, and that the law transcends the law of karma. It is the law of grace or forgiveness. It is the law which frees man from the law of cause and effect, the law of consequence. Okay. That explains my question from earlier. Under grace, not under law. We are told that on this plane, man reaps where he has not sown. The gifts of God are simply poured out upon him. All that the kingdom affords is his. This continued state of bliss awaits the man who has overcome the race or world thought. In the world thought, there is tribulation, but Jesus Christ said, "Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." The world thought is that of sin, sickness, and death. World thought. Okay. He said their absolute unreality and said, "Sickness and sorrow shall pass away, and death itself, the last enemy, be overcome." We know now from a scientific standpoint that death could be overcome by stamping out subconscious mind with the conviction of eternal youth and eternal life. Let me repeat that. We know now from a scientific standpoint that death could be overcome by stamping the subconscious mind with the conviction of eternal youth and eternal life. The subconscious, being simply power without direction, carries out orders without questioning. Working under direction of the subconscious, the Christ or God within, the quote, resurrection of the body would be accomplished. Man would no longer throw off his body in death. It would be transformed into the body electric, sung by Walt Whitman. For Christianity is founded upon the forgiveness of sins and an empty tomb. That's interesting. Christianity is founded upon forgiveness of sins and an empty tomb. Okay, another amazing chapter. And let's go back and look at some of those things that were at the beginning. Um, yes, the man's thoughts and deeds and words return to him sooner or later with astounding accuracy. Oh my goodness, is this true? This is so true. Like whew, um, I am embarrassed. I mean, I'm not even going to share it with you, but I'm embarrassed for all the things that I've, like when I was in my youth and I said stupid things about people, and then I became those very things. So, and astounding accuracy, that is accurate. Like the um game of boomerangs. And it's funny because I haven't seen a boomerang in so long. But a boomerang, in case you don't know, it's like this thing that you throw and it comes back to you. So, yeah, so the game of life is a game of boomerangs. And whatever you put out there comes back to you. And not just dilly-dally, in astounding accuracy. And that is so true. Um, we were going to go to, okay, so she makes a distinction here between, let's say you desire something, and how incredibly powerful are we that we desire something so strongly that things make way for it. But to be careful, because we are so strong that if we desire something that's not ours by divine right, all chaos can like ensue. So she does give us I think a prayer in here. If you get the book, you can also underline it. But there's such a thing as the divine selection. And the divine selection is the thing you should have had, in which everything is, um, everything works out for everyone. So it says the divine selection would have given perfect satisfaction and brought good to all. So basically, if you are desiring something so much, let's say you are desiring a partner, and if that's not your divine selection, you might be matched. You're going to get it. You're going to get this person, but it might not be the right match because you will, it wouldn't have brought good to you, maybe, right? So the only way that you know that this is the divine selection is that everyone involved gets something good out of it, right? So wouldn't it be make sense then to does um ask for the divine selection? And I think she gives us how to ask for this. I can't seem to find it right now. Um So then the other part was, let's see, man admonished, my will be done, not thine. And the curious thing is, man always gets just what he desires when he does to relinquish. Okay, so then it's requiring us to relinquish personal will. So it's not what we want, is to say, I trust that the divine selection or higher self or spirit is I'm enabling infinite intelligence to work through me to get that divine selection. So it's not forcing it, it's not choosing it on your own. It's just trusting and enabling infinite intelligence to work through you to and relinquishing personal will. So it's just like it's really requiring a lot of trust here. Yeah. Um, and I am going to go ahead and copy this, the prayer that she got. So let's say there's something that you want or that you're afraid of. I have talked about this before. I have a kitten and she is obsessed with wanting to go outside. And at some point, my indoor kitten, it might get to go outside. And God forbid, that is like my biggest fear. So I think I'm gonna turn this section right here into a prayer about that. So it says, let go and take your mental hands off. So I'm going to take my mental hands off of my that I worry about my cat getting out of the house and put it in God's hands and use this statement. So I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. If um if this trip is a divine plan, I bless it and no longer resist. So I guess blessing and letting go, not trying to control and not living in that fear. Um, and what is the divine plan? What is the divine plan when it comes to um, relationships or business and giving thanks that the issue or the problem has been dissolved and dissipated. Um, and I am really benefiting, I think, from how she's teaching us about um, you know, acting, like rub out. Okay, she says, you will never become rich with a burnt match in the pincushion, and all men with great wealth are orderly, and order is heaven's first law. So, that's interesting because if you're trying to manifest money, right? And you're living in a hoarder house or, or things are messy, like, behind me, look at me. So if things are messy, you're not preparing for that financial manifestation to take place. And then again, faith or trust must precede the demonstration. And demonstration here again is like a manifestation. So we must have faith and we must have trust, and then the manifestation happen, not the other way around. It's not like manifestation happens and then we're like, oh, I guess now we believe. No, it's like it's requiring us to believe and trust before in order for us to demonstrate. Okay, so last and really important is the law of karma and then um the higher law. So how there's like God's law and then there's a law of karma. So the law of karma is can be overpassed under grace and under grace. So using, I think she said forgiveness. There's something in here. Oh, yeah. Grace or forgiveness. So it is the law of grace or forgiveness that allows for us to overcome or surpass the law of karma. So it's interesting, like one law is stronger than another. Um, and that's about it for that chapter. She reiterates how the subconscious mind is just power without direction, and it does what we want it to, and and how we can beat death by stamping the subconscious mind with a conviction of eternal youth and eternal life. So it is our ability, we have the ability to impress upon our subconscious mind, which she says is simply the power behind direction, and it carries out the orders without questioning. It just does what we impress upon it. And so we can gain eternal youth and eternal life from using that knowledge of that law. All right. Wow. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you missed the last couple of chapters, you can just click on the link below and go ahead and get yourself a copy because you're going to want to use some of those prayers for yourself. Some of those, as she calls them, treatments. And when she says treatments, she just means like prayers and turn them and use them for your own uses and your own addressing your own fears about different things, like I just explained with my cat. So yeah, so definitely use that. So I will see you soon for chapter 6. Bye.